It's Anish Giri versus Vidit Gujrathi. Anish is 1 point down in the match, but the last game he had scored his first win of the match. He opens with e4, he is on a high, knight c6, bishop c4, bishop c5 and c3, knight f6, d3, d6, all very standard stuff in the Italian with an early bishop g5, h6, bishop h4. He plays his pawn to a6, Anish castles it out. And now bishop goes back to a7, knight to d2. And Vidit goes g5 and he castles very quickly. It's quite risky to put your king in the side of the board where the pawns are pushed forward, but Vidit is not so worried about it. He pushes his pawn even further. Is this his preparation? Knight to h4, he goes knight h5. Wow, this definitely looks something like Vidit has prepared. There have been some games in this position already, so it is quite possible that this is all part of Vidit's prep. And now Anish is thinking how should he continue, because Vidit's plan is very clear. He goes knight f1 and Vidit brings his queen to g5, knight e3, takes the bishop. Anish just little hesitant there, takes with the rook, and now knight to f4, d4, excellent move by Anish, playing in the center. Knight comes back to g6. You can see there Vidit making his moves very confidently. Now if you take here, then after fg6 it opens up the rook's position, but this is a good fine position for white, nothing much to worry about. Instead Anish is thinking here, he's down by 40 seconds on the clock. He's wondering whether he should play knight f5 check or not, because apart from taking the knight or knight f5 there are no other good moves for white. But knight f5, doesn't it lose a pawn? Well, on the other hand, yes, it loses a pawn, but it opens up the bishop, it opens up the rook, and so it's a very interesting decision. Anish actually goes for it, Vidit chops it off, ef5, and now there's pressure on e5 point. I think it makes sense to pick up the pawn there. Vidit does it and he asks Anish, where is your compensation? Now for Anish, a good way to prove it is to go bishop d3, attack the queen here. And perhaps that is what is on his mind. Or maybe he wants to take on e5 and open up the position. No, his plan was to play f3. Oh, that was his idea, but this is a big mistake. The reason is the queen can move with the tempo, attacking the rook, and then the h-pawn can move down the board. Fantastic move. Vidit finds the most powerful move in the position. And now the problem is, if you go rook e1, there is h5 with the idea of h4 and the pawns are coming forward there. So he plays bishop f2. But if you think about it, this was never what Anish wanted to do, to use his bishop in a defensive position, which means that now Vidit is a pawn up but also has the initiative on his side. And he goes h5, fantastic move once again, just playing it very naturally. Maybe next he may want to even push his f pawn down the board. fg4, he picks up hg4 and now rook to g3, putting pressure on the g4 pawn, but in comes f5, h3 played by Anish. But look, here is the point, you don't need to save your g pawn. Whenever he takes, you can push f4. So actually Vidit does not have to worry at all about Anish's threat of hg4, but will he recognize that with 3 minutes on the clock? It's quite possible that you get under time pressure and start to then, not make the best moves. The position still is complex. Rook h8, excellent move, and Anish instantly takes, which is a big losing mistake. He should have played queen b3, but after hg4, f4, excellent move. Rook h3 played here. And now it's time for the e pawn also to come down the board. With two pawns on f4 and e4, that is going to be tremendous pressure for Anish Giri. Will he be able to handle it? For now, Vidit needs to find the winning move. He first takes, G takes and again finds the best move. Vidit is in tremendous form here. Bishop e6, maybe to put the bishop on f5 square. That could be the plan here. Now it's a natural idea to bring your last piece into the game. Yes, rook h8 on the board, attacking the h3 pawn with pawns on f4 and e4 coming down. Also the rook on h8. This is game over for Anish Giri. What does he do next now? Where does he move? He wants to play maybe king h2 here, but then f3 and then queen f4 and the knight coming in, and there are too many threats. So Anish, thinking a bit, plays his queen to f1. Now Vidit has 2 minutes to finish off his opponent. How should he do it? Should he rush in with e3? Maybe it's possible. Then bishop e1 would have to be played. Or he can push his other pawn down the board, f3, with the idea of e3. With it very calm, very cool, just like Black Lotus is seen on his forearms. He's been practicing that. He looks so calm there. It's a meditation app. f3, rook e1 played to stop e3 from coming in, and also attacking this pawn on e4. What does Vidit do? Now once again, the best move here is knight f4, because if you take the pawn, then h3 would hang, and he finds it. Again, he finds the best move, bishop e3 played by Anish. Queen f6, fantastic move. Now the bishop on e6 is hanging, the pawn on h3 is hanging. Too many things hanging here. For Anish, the position looks tremendously difficult. What to do now? He takes the knight, queen takes f4. Now this pawn is weak, queen g3 is coming, pawn to e3 is coming. How do you take care of so many issues in the position? Anish decides to use his king to block the e-pawn from moving forward. That's not what you want your king to be doing. But well, what to do? It is dire measures time for Anish Giri. Maybe now Vidit is thinking, should he go rook e8 to attack the bishop? If the bishop moves, then e3 comes up. That seems very logical. But in such a position, it makes a lot of sense to get this knight into the game, which is doing nothing much on c6. But you can only find such moves like knight e7 if you are in good form. Otherwise, it's very difficult to play it because it doesn't create a threat instantly. It's basically a move where you are giving the move to your opponent and asking him, what do you want to do? My plan is knight e7, knight g6 and so on. Oh, and with it finds it, which just goes to show what tremendous form he is at this event. Playing this very nice move, and after this Anish does not have any real ideas. d5 played. Maybe it's just time to give a check. He gives a check, king e3, and now chops off the pawn. Well, of course, if you want to take here, that's already queen e5. It is big trouble with f2 coming up, so you can't take that pawn. What do? Maybe offer a trade of queens with queen f2. Yes, he does. Vidit never in his dreams is going to exchange this queen. He goes back instantly, creating a major threat of rook h2, knight g6, queen f4 with mating ideas there. And Anish has a minute on the clock, but his position is beyond salvation. There is nothing much he can do. Vidit just moving the pieces on the side. He wants to be sure that he takes this point home. He's already 1 point ahead in the match. With this win, he will have 2 extra points, which will be a huge lead. Anish's time is running down. He's looking very carefully at the position. He knows that he's gone, but are there any final tricks left? Vidit has played in such dominating style this game that there is no counterplay at all. c4 played, rook h2, excellent move. Now next move, f2 is coming, b2 is hanging, I guess there's not even a logical move left in the position. Anish resigns, and with this, Vidit has played one of the finest games in this tournament, in this match, but maybe even in his chess career in a blitz format, with making absolutely no errors. What a game this was.